Hi guys, thanks for joining me in a new video. Welcome to a new time-lapse video. So today I'm going to show you a time-lapse of a graphite drawing that I finished. It will be a Silvery Marmoset, which is a type of monkey, cute little monkey. And I'm using graphite pencils from Faber-Castell. It's a limited edition pencil that I just had lying around. And I'm doing a graphite piece. So this is my first graphite drawing in probably 1.5 years. So I felt very uncomfortable with it. I'm way more comfortable at the moment with colored pencil and pastels because I've done so many drawings with them in the past year. But graphite, I didn't practice that much anymore. So this was quite a fun one and fun practice for me as well. And it's also a Patreon tutorial, so for the $4 membership you can follow this one. It's a very good one to follow if you want to practice values and shapes and different textures, like the soft white fur that we'll be drawing with this piece as well. So I'm showing you the process a little bit and talking you through it. And I'm starting out with the background. So this photo was taken by Claire Witham, which is also a Patreon member, and she gave us permission to use it. So thanks to Claire for this photo because it's a really cute, lovely photo. And I'm recreating the background here. So what I'm doing is I'm adding multiple layers with the 4B pencil. Just very light little layers with very even pressure so you don't get any blotches in your drawing. And then I'm smudging it all out with a soft little cloth. So that's how I did the whole background, and some areas I made a little darker and some I kept a little lighter so you get that variety in the background. Otherwise it will look a bit flat. So that's the background. It was done pretty quickly. And then I went on with the face. So I started with the eyes. And now you can see the reference on screen as well. So starting with the eyes, I love drawing eyes also with graphite. And I've just started out by mapping out the most important shapes in the eye and the darkest shapes. So I start by mapping those out with a 2B. And then I went on with adding the darker contrasts and the medium tones. And then the highlights, which were quite large, I kept open. And then later on with the blending stump, I could add a bit of value in the highlights as well. So that's how I did the eyes. Graphite works pretty quickly compared to colored pencil, so that's very nice. It was quite quick piece to do. Still, I spent about 5 hours on it, so it wasn't a very small piece. So I still spent 5 hours on it, but the eyes were done pretty quickly as I'm quite comfortable with drawing eyes. So I really like how the eyes turned out as well. I did use a little bit of a black Faber-Castell Polychromos colored pencil for some extra contrast in the eye, because with graphite you can never get that extremely dark black effect, and I really like high contrast, so I added a little bit of black colored pencil just in the eyes. And then I moved on with the face. So I did the face, the skin on the face very carefully, also in the same way as I did the background. So I started off with some light base layers of 2B and then blended it all out and kept building up those layers. So right now I'm already moving on to the muzzle, but later on I will get back into the face and the skin around the eyes to darken that all up, because at the moment it's not quite dark enough yet. Alright, so for the mouth, I sketched out the shape of the teeth first, and then I filled in the inside of the mouth right away because it's quite a dark area. And I like to fill in the dark areas first so that I can then better judge the areas around that. So I like to start out by mapping out the darkest shapes That's also the way I work with colored pencil, doing the darkest shapes first and then the rest. So I'm applying that same technique to the graphite drawing. And then I started with the base layer on the muzzle. So also the same way as the skin, just building it up in very light and even layers, making sure that there aren't any scratches or blotches on there, and then blending it all out with the cloth. And then I started building up the textures. So you can see on the muzzle that there are quite some markings and mole kind of spots on the muzzle and the chin. So I'm recreating those. And then there were also some white hairs on the muzzle, so those I did with the Tombow Mono-Zero eraser, which I made sure that it was very sharp, and then I could just erase out all those little hairs. Though when I did that, I thought about that maybe it would have been better to do it with the indenting tool, but I completely forgot to use the indenting tool at the start. So I just did the white hairs with the eraser. And moving on to the chin, I did exactly the same as the top lip area, building up lightly and blending it out. Keep building it up. Actually, I added many layers. It doesn't look like it on the speed drawing, but I did spend quite some time on building up lots of layers, because if you press too much with graphite right away, you will get a shine or a glare on the drawing, which I don't really like. So I made sure to keep that patience and build it up very carefully. Oh, by the way, I'm using Kenson 1557 paper. That's the exact same paper that I use for colored pencil. So I've been working with this paper for many years, and I still like it as well for graphite. Also added some of those spots on the chin, and then I could also put in some texture with the kneaded eraser. And then I started doing some of the skin around the muzzle, like the skin on the neck. Then I could also add some of the details around the muzzle, like the white hair sticking out. And then I moved on to the ears. So on the reference, the ears are very much out of focus. So they are very blurry and there is very little detail in it. So I've tried to recreate that same effect in the drawing. So I kept it very loose. So what is important though is that you put the value in there, so that the darks are in the right place and the lights are in the right place. In the inside of the ear, just next to the fur, it's the darkest. So there I made sure to add some dark. Then blending it all out with the blending stump. So sometimes I use the stump and sometimes I use the cloth. With the blending stump you can smudge out more with more control, so you can smudge out smaller areas. And with the cloth you can get a really soft and smudged effect on larger areas. So also I pulled out some highlights on the edges of the ear, so I did that with the kneaded eraser. And at the same time I was trying to make sure that that edge stayed very soft and blurry. And then I did the same on the other ear, and unfortunately I didn't think about the reference covering the ear. So unfortunately the process on the other ear is a bit covered by the reference. But basically I did the exact same thing. So I built up again, putting the darks in the inside of the ear and then keeping it light on the edges, and then eventually pulling out some highlights on the edge of the ear as well. So then I went back into the eyes a little bit and into the face. And then it was time to move on to the fur. So I love doing this part. The fur was definitely my favorite part of the drawing to make. And also it isn't that difficult. So if you draw white fur, it's super important that you don't keep the white white. So there's always some shadow in white fur, and especially when you look at the picture, especially on the left side, there's some shadow. So I made sure to start out with a base layer of graphite on my fur. So I just used some of the graphite that was still on the cloth, and I used that to smudge over the whole white area and give it a little bit of shading. And then I could quite easily put in a little bit of shadow in between the hairs with a pencil, then smudge it out again, and then use the Tombow Mono Zero eraser to pull out the white hairs themselves. So that was a pretty easy and quick way to do the soft fur. This photo is a little bit blurry, or the face is very much in focus, but the rest is a little bit blurry. So I didn't want a lot of detail in the fur anyway. So I kept it soft and quick, but still made sure that it looked like fur by putting the shadows in the right place. I also made sure to make some hairs overlap the ear with the Tombow Mono Zero eraser, and then I went to the forehead and the right side of the face as well. And I'm building up the rest of the fur in the same way. So starting off with a light base layer of graphite. Also throughout the process I made sure to not push too much. So I built up the whole drawing with very light pressure. I didn't push, because if you push too much from the start you get a glare, and it will be quite hard to erase or use the eraser to pull out the hairs. So I kept a very light touch on the pencil throughout the whole process. Alright, so then I moved on to the left side of the body and also the neck area. So for the body, the fur was very long, so what I started out with is to add some long strokes in the direction of the fur growth with the graphite, and then I blended that all out so you get that illusion of long fur already. I also adjusted the background a little bit. I felt that the background could be a little darker so that the fur would stand out better. And then I also darkened up the neck area quite a bit. And then I added a few more layers of those long strokes of fur going in the right direction of the fur growth. And then using the cloth again to blend it all out. And then I had a good base for my Tombow Mono Zero to pull out the hairs with and add some individual hairs. And that will really bring out the depth in the fur. And for this drawing I've only used an HB, a 2B, a 4B and a 5B. So those are the only hardnesses of pencil that I've used. And I've used the 2B and the 4B the most. And then for the right side, that was a very undetailed side, also a bit lighter than the left side. So I did almost nothing to this side. I made sure to get a base layer of graphite there. Add a little bit of extra shadowing, but not too much. And then I used the eraser again to pull out some hairs, especially next to the face. So there I did add some detail, but then on the rest of the body I kept it all very loose. And then after some final blending and some more darkening up on the face, I was done. So I'm just going around a bit and adding some more detail here and there. It was a very fun drawing to make and I learned a lot from it. It's very good to practice your black and white drawing skills in between color projects, so you still focus on the values and contrast instead of the colors by themselves. in the end, when you're making realistic drawings, it's all about the values and the contrasts. So that's a very good thing to practice. So I hope you like this project. Let me know in the comments below what you think of it. The full drawing is available to watch and draw along with on Patreon. And then I want to thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.